Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our exclusive Global Leading Voices webinar campaign. We are delighted to have you join us here today. Please be informed that if you have any questions during the presentation, you may type them into the question box in your control panel. The presenter will answer your questions at the end of the presentation accordingly. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our presenter, who will begin shortly.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Nnick, ioannou, and welcome to Email Security 101, a practical guide for every business. A bit about me, I've been in IT for over 20 years, since the days of Windows 3.1 for work groups, if any of you still remember that. And I'm the head of IT for an architectural practice in the UK, and also a cybersecurity author with a number of titles, some purely mine and others I've co-authored. So let's crack on. So the first question everyone always asks me with anything to do with cybersecurity is, why would cybercriminals target me? Well, there's 4 reasons, and it doesn't matter what the crime is. It all boils down to extortion, fraud, theft, or unauthorized use of your computer. So the extortion, we know that as the ransom demands, denial of service, sextortion. Fraud, we know as fake services, fake products, money transfer scams. Theft, that's whether it's stealing login credentials, financial information, or even webcam footage or raw data. And lastly, unauthorized use of your computer. Well, they don't really want to pay for services, so they'll reuse your machines as spam relays, web servers, or even mine cryptocurrencies. And once they're in, they can move however they want, because once they have a foothold, they may start with unauthorized use, steal what they can, and then move to extortion. Or they can start fraud and so on. So the biggest thing is we need a whole different area of cover, 9 areas to be precise, to be truly protected. But we're just going to focus today on email. Email filtering is pretty much what saves your business on a day-to-day basis from cybercriminals. But it's not just about the technology, because the criminals adapt constantly. So this presentation's more about the different techniques they use and what you could face. That technology may not stop, but if you understand it, you can. Now, emails are the main infection route for practically everyone. But an email can contain another email. It can contain a compressed zip file that can also contain another email. It can contain links, a payload with a virus. It can contain a Word or Excel file with a macro that then goes out somewhere else, or it can contain a PDF. There's so many options, but more recently, they're even linking to online collaboration shares, legitimate ones as well. So there's so many techniques that criminals can use in just what we consider to be an email, but it gives them a vast array of opportunities. Then there's the actual types of emails. Well, there's only 2. It's either a genuine email or it's a bogus one. Now, the genuine email, it's going to be from a genuine email system, from a genuine user, for a legitimate reason, and it'll either have a URL link or an attachment. The bogus emails, those, can have a whole range of options. They can spoof the domain. They may just try and deceive you by changing the name of the person. They can buy a lookalike domain where just one character is out, or use international characters so you can't tell the difference. But what they're doing a lot now is they're just compromising legitimate users and using their accounts. And then moving on the bogus side, they can then commit the reason extortion, fraud, theft, or unauthorized use, or just pure disruption. And then the payload options is a malicious attachment, a malicious link, or an attachment with a malicious link. Now, the criminals can make incredibly convincing fake emails. They have all the digital resources they need. It's all available pretty much from the websites and also from people, customers of any of the businesses or organizations concerned, which the criminals may be a customer. So it's quite easy for them to lift off and repurpose whatever they receive. And today, it's easy to learn how to use Photoshop. It's cheap. You don't need any real resources to make a fake email whatsoever. You also don't need much to make convincing fake websites. So that fake TV licensing link email went to a fake TV licensing website, where here they'll be asking for all sorts of personal details to commit identity fraud. The assets are there. The web's never been designed to be secure. When you visit a website, everything is loaded. It's quite easy to lift off any part of a website and create a convincing clone. And the criminals will also try and mimic common file sharing services. Any of the mainstream ones, Google Drive, OneDrive, Box, any of the corporate systems, they'll try and mimic them and trick us as well. Once again, they can just lift off all the assets and make any web page look like a legitimate one. And the whole point of this is they mainly want to phish our credentials, because Office credentials may give remote desktop access straight into your network. It will lift off your contacts. People store all sorts in their email, including passwords. So having access to a Google Apps account will give you access to pretty much their entire digital life, or everything a business needs. So our credentials are important. Now, there's a lot of tricks the criminals will use. Now, in this case, you can send, this is an email from a compromised account, and it looks like there's an attachment, but it's not actually an attachment, it's actually a graphic made to look like an attachment, so you don't think twice about clicking it. Here it's zoomed in, and it's a very clever technique. And this is the thing with the criminals, they don't stand still. They'll keep finding new ways to try and trick us. Now, this looks like an attachment, and so people think, oh, it's passed through my email filters. So, but it'll actually be a link. So unless your technology is checking for links as well, you can become unstuck. The criminals also visit our websites and know who to email. Here's an example of our chairman supposedly sending an email to our accounts department. In this case, this is just display name deception. It's the right name, completely wrong email address. It's this generic iPhone 7 at myappleiCloud.net. But they know who to speak to. The criminals also try and mimic, official document signing services like DocuSign. We expect legal documents and tenders and all sorts of business documents to come via this way. So, we don't think nothing of it. As long as we see the logos and that, everything looks fine. And it's a real area criminals are targeting. The criminals also try and mimic accounts packages. A lot of modern day accounts packages will automatically send out invoice emails, so we're used to it. But it's a case of like seeing, the send addresses. Is that where you're expecting it? Is there enough information? Is your name there? It's so easy to be fooled when you're under pressure. And that's part of the psychology is, they'll turn on the pressure, they'll send reminders. It may not just be by email, it might be text messages, even phone calls. Have you seen that email I sent you? Can you deal with it? They put on the pressure. It's psychological pressure. So we have to be aware of what they can do. They'll also mimic whole accounts departments. Things that look plausible. It'll be in formats we expect, but none of it's real. And this is in the flood of all the normal emails that we have, because let's face it, we do have way too many emails to deal with on a daily basis. They'll also try and mimic things like file transfer service emails. So on the left, there's a legitimate one from WeTransfer, and on the right, it's a complete fake that's been mocked up by a criminal and sent out. Everything you see here is actually been received by me or my colleagues. So, I haven't mocked anything up in Photoshop. All of these are real, actual attempts by criminals to defraud us or infect us. The criminals would also try and mimic corporate file sharing services like SharePoint or their own internal networks and that. It's very difficult, especially with compromised accounts, because the from email address is correct. There's nothing suspicious. And if they're clever with their graphics and their wording, and they don't push the limits too much, they can really catch a lot of people out because it just looks so genuine. Information that we give away on our websites, in news with clients and projects we're working on, all of that could feed in. And with AI and machine learning, which the criminals have access to, they can make all of these look near perfect, if not 100% perfect. The criminals can also just use genuine file sharing services. There's an example here where it was a plausible project in the subject. It's from an address that would look fine. That the link and everything was 100% legitimate. It was via WeTransfer. In fact, the only suspicious thing, if you could spot it, is the fact that someone is using a file sharing service to transfer a 280 byte file. That's like sending an envelope in a suitcase. It's just, it's overkill, and that's the only thing that gives it away in that first email. That's something suspicious, because you click on the link, it goes to the right, it genuinely goes to WeTransfer.com. It's only then when you pull down, it's a HTML file, not an actual document, to take you somewhere else where the criminals is trying to push you. So when it comes to file sharing services, is the size appropriate? Is the service being used what you would expect for what they're telling you that you're going to receive? Criminals can also just fake their own file sharing services as well. They don't even have to use real ones. In this example here, I know it's all dark, but they were asking to confirm the email address that they sent the request to. And then from that, you're then asked for a Microsoft password in this case. So I gave them the name of Bill Gates at Microsoft.com just to see where it would lead to. Bear in mind that you shouldn't just test all these sites. I test stuff on an iPad because I know nothing will happen. Don't just for the sake of curiosity click on these links, because you might land on a website with an exploit kit, and you could get infected in a split second without realizing. So a lot of it boils down to the criminals wanting our login credentials. And when you are presented with any form of credential login screen, you need to get into the habit of looking at the top of the address, because if it's not what you expect, if there's any hint that it's not real, stop, and check with someone who can verify it. Speed is what the criminals are working and relying on. If you take time and pause, and ask everyone before, if anything asks you for a username and password, check that it's real. Otherwise, it's so easy to be tricked. Now, the criminals know who we work with too. We give this information away in our own advertising and marketing on our own websites. And in this example, this is one of our clients, and it's one of our architects supposedly has emailed them with an invoice. So this is display name deception. It's not from Andrew Mitchell, but they've targeted one of our clients. So there's nothing we can really do when they're using display name deception. You can set up DMARC and other technologies so that it instantly gets flagged as spam by the people that will be receiving it. But it just goes to show just how much research the criminals will do on you. So the criminals now, what I've seen over the past few years, increasingly are compromising email accounts of suppliers we work with, whether they're suppliers, consultants, or even clients. Phishing them for their accounts means they can then send emails out as the genuine people. The signatures will be real, everything looks fine. They pass through all the spam filters because we've normally whitelisted them because we need to make sure they come through. I've even seen ones where they'll change the signature to modify the telephone numbers. So when you ring and say, "Oh, is this real?" The person answering says, "Oh, so and so is not available right now, but yes, the email's genuine." The whole social engineering thing is from someone you trust. You'll even, not 100% sure, so you ring them up, someone answers, and then you fall for the trap. It's a perfect scam for the criminals. So where they send you, if it sends you to somewhere, once again, if it doesn't look quite right, there's multiple steps where you have the opportunity to stop the criminals. So here, it's a completely fake document management system. They did all the effort of trying to compromise people we work with, send emails from their accounts, but in this case, it was quite an obviously fake document management system. And stopping to pause, because if the website doesn't look right, and the thing is, criminals can use other people's websites that they've hacked into and phish the credentials, add subdomains as well, and host it on legitimate sites. It's hidden away, tucked away in the corner without them realizing. And once again, if you're asked for a user authentication when you wouldn't expect to be, because someone's sharing something with you, pause and just think, no, doesn't seem right. And with the compromised accounts can come in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes they put in a lot of effort, other times it's more generic, and they're relying also on lack of knowledge of the technologies and systems that are available to be used. So click to open V-Drive, VDocs, it sounds plausible, it doesn't exist as far as I know. But the address is real, the company's real, and it's good enough to catch a lot of people out if they've got big clients or a big network of their suppliers. So there's the criminal's perfect storm. This is a compromised email account of someone you trust. So the email is going to arrive. It's not going to get blocked. There's a link in that email to a genuine file service. There's absolutely nothing malicious at all in that email. The only thing that will be suspicious is the context or what they're talking about, if it's unexpected. And then if that genuine file service then leads to a password protected file or a phishing attempt, a lot of the technology will not stop this. It's user education that will stop these type of tricks. And even then, a lot of people will still be fooled because it's a real email from someone they trust going to a genuine service to deliver whatever payload they want. And if it's password protected, that bypasses more security. So this is what we're facing in the worst case. But there's things you can do. Basic steps you can do is to block and quarantine attachment file types that you would never see on a day-to-day basis unless you're a web developer or programmer. There's quite a few of them now, and it doesn't hurt to block all these. Some of these are PowerShell scripts that once you click them, they'll run. Others are more basics, like macro-enabled Office files. If you quarantine them and then decide to release them once you've checked them out and approved them, know that the person that is sending them did want to send them to you. The file blocking is the first step. And this list keeps evolving as Microsoft and other companies add different file formats and features to file formats. Also, a good email filter, I like cloud-based email filters. Will block so much. Here, we had 110 viruses blocked in 1 month for a small business with less than 30 staff. And these aren't phishing attempts. These aren't payload. These are actual payloads. Sorry, with a known virus in them. And so blocking them before they arrive at the machines, makes a big difference, as well as all the spam and all the other things. Investing in a good email filtering will make your life a lot easier, rather than relying on desktop antivirus to stop it when it's arrived on the machine. Also, things like Microsoft Office Protective View, turn it on. I know it's it can be a pain with the extra click. Sorry, there's a bit of traffic here. I'm outside. Turn it on, and you'll be prompted to enable and all sorts, but it just means things from email are immediately protected and won't run executables or scripts. Other things you can do is also turn on and run as a standard user, but I think that might be a further slide. Now, web filtering augments email filtering, because a lot of the criminals' emails aren't malicious in themselves because they reach out to a malicious website. So having some type of web filtering is a must. And DNS filtering, well, you can do that for free with Quad 9. It's free for businesses. It's just changing your DNS servers to 9.9.9.9. And it adds a whole load of threat protection. You can also invest in a web proxy for full web traffic filtering of both HTTP and HTTPS web traffic. And you can see, this is a monthly report. Once again, 23 users identified with over 1,400 threats that were blocked. Now, this does include browsing traffic, but a lot of it is via emails. And these services aren't expensive. They're in the reach of absolutely everyone, not just large firms or medium firms, even small firms. So it's important, to make sure that you spend your budget wisely. Email filtering is a priority for most of us, but it's all too easy to buy the best of something and then have no real budget for everything else. That kind of complements and finishes the whole security portfolio. To give you an idea of what it costs, it's a cost a week of a premium cup of coffee per person. There's combined antivirus and patch management, email filtering with a 10-year archive, web filtering through a proxy, admin privileges software, so all your users are running as standard users and they're never asked for administrator credentials. The software intercepts it. Access control software for two-factor authentication. When someone's asked for credentials, it's then asked for another code from their phone or a fob. It all adds up, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a cup of coffee a week per person. It's in everyone's reach. I'll give you an idea. I spend a bit more than that. I have a whole range and layers of security, and it comes to £25 per person per month, which is still, it's a mobile phone contract. To protect, my users use very expensive drawing software on very expensive machines. The licensing for the software costs 10 times more than protecting the person on that machine through security. So, there's lots of options. It's a case of finding a balance. I always look for what I call the VW Golf sweet spot. And then it's not just about the technology. The people and processes are equally important, especially when you've got no budget to speak of, which is something we all encounter at one time or another. So yeah, the technologies, yes, it's the systems in place that protect you. But on the people side, employee awareness of what to do, not what to, and what not to do is equally important. You know, the steps to, you know, to check when you're putting in credentials, hang on, is this web address right? You know, they become processes, the guidelines, instructions that you put to them to help them so that when they're not sure, you know, they can look it up without, you know, thinking, oh no, I should know this, or, you know, feeling time pressure. And there's resources available. You know, the government in the UK has done Take 5 to stop fraud, and also been involved with learninfosec.co.uk. Insurance companies like Hiscox have something called the Cyberclear Academy, which is actually has the first training module. It's available for free to anyone. And if you have Hiscox cyber insurance, you have access to a whole suite of training material. Yeah, and they encourage you to use it because then your excess is reduced to zero. And also antivirus vendors offer online training for free. So there's a lot you can do. The systems you can put in place, and education, you know, is a key part of that. That's me done. If anyone has any questions in the chat, or you want to email, my email is on the next page, which I think Ardian will take over. And
Yes, thank you, Nick, for delivering this very informative presentation. Beautiful insights on email security. I want to inform you that PECB also provides training and certification services on cybersecurity, specifically on ISO 27032, Introduction, Foundation, and Lead Cybersecurity Manager. A PECB certificate in these above-mentioned courses will convey your dedication in implementing and managing these processes and frameworks, and most importantly, you will be recognized worldwide. Now, as Nick mentioned, we'll go ahead and take some time to answer some of the questions from the attendees today regarding today's topic. The first question is a straightforward one. So the question is, how do you detect that an attachment is not genuine?
right, your email filters, if you have them, will identify known viruses. The file type, we've been getting a lot of .image files which aren't real. No one will send an invoice as a .image file. So the file type, the name and convention of the file, if it's not something that person would normally send you, there's a whole list of things you have to go through. And the technology and the rules that you can put in place can kind of narrow that list down. But some of it's just a case of, you know, through education of just knowing which files that to expect from those people. So, you know, whoever you work with, if you've established the file types that they would send you, you know, look at the file sizes. You can tell things aren't genuine when they're too small or too big. You know, when they're incredibly small and it's supposed to be a spreadsheet full of information that you've requested going back 3 years and it's tiny, you know something's not right. You know, you literally have to become like detectives and question everything. There's no great secret. It's just a process of elimination. File type, size, context, subject lines. You know, if there's macros there, why would they send you something with macros? If the PDF has a link, why would they not just send you the link? Why they send you a PDF to have the link? It goes back. If the email attachment is another email, and then that email has a zip file, and then you go, well, wait a minute, this is a bit overkill. So it's, you know, you've got to see if anything even seems slightly suspicious. In fact, that's the trick, is just be suspicious of everything and work backwards.
Thank you, Nick. Another question is, Can you customize any email platform to suit your business needs?
Yeah, pretty much. Whether it's a hosted one like Office 365 or Gmail, or if you're running your own Exchange server or your own email servers, you have total control. You can add rules into any of these platforms and block what you want. The cloud filtering or any form of email filtering, it can be local on-premise filtering. That gives you even more granularity. I used to block emails by attachment and file size. Sorry, by file size. If the file of the email was absolutely tiny and it had a shortened link, I blocked it because no genuine business or client we worked with would send those types of emails. So yeah, it's a bit of, speak to other companies, speak to service providers. They'll be able to tell you, any managed service provider providing any form of IT support will be able to advise you of what a system can and can't do. But and most of them can do pretty much everything you need quite quickly, and then by adding on some type of filtering will complete the full system.
What is the main duty of the cybersecurity manager? Is it more technical or in more advised part?
It's both. It's both. You need to be able to talk to people. If you only rely on technology, things will get through, because the criminals have more technology. They have access to better systems, more power, better programmers. So education is key. So you need to be able to do both. Yeah, that's it really, both.
Okay. So how can you tell if a website is a fraud, as you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation?
So websites that you visit often, have a look at the top, and there'll be the HTTPS, :// and then there may be www, and then there'll be the domain, and it's the dots between the final domain and the .com before the last // That's the real domain where it is. So if you see the service that you're on, if that's after the last slash, it's not real. So after the first slash, the first // that at that point it's no longer a subdomain, it's just folders in the web server. So if you see anything, so if it's supposed to be a bank, say HSBC, and there's a whole load of text and dots and .com, and then there's a // and then you see the bits that say HSBC, that's not real. So that's the easiest thing. Look for the first / and then see what's in front of it. That's the real domain where you are. Okay, and if it happens to be of a company that you don't recognize or expect, there's a good chance it's fake. If you're not sure, open a different browser and actually do a web search for that company or service. If the two don't match up or look even remotely the same, it's fraudulent. And it's just practice as well. But the best thing is, look at the web address, look for that first // and then see what's in front of it, not behind it, in front of it.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, what types of phishing are mostly used nowadays from hackers?
Well, they're still phishing for Office 365 credentials and Google credentials. They're two of the biggest ones. But it depends how targeted the attack is. So if they know you use particular services, then they could target you for those services. So from credential stuffing, they know your email address and they found one of your passwords from a hack that's been dumped on the internet. They can just try, with credential stuffing bots as well, to see where they can get to. also, they can try and phish you via text messages as well. But the majority, they want Office 365 credentials or Microsoft credentials, because that could get them remote desktop access to your machine.
Thank you. Another question is, so it says hackers are creating chaos by targeting company emails, which start with GM, FM, CEO, etc. So maybe it's not advisable to have a long distance employees, especially those who handle finance.
All it's not that you shouldn't have them, it's just a case of making sure your processes are in place. So you could make it that we use a secure email system instead of normal email for anything to do with invoicing. You password protect all your invoices. So, if anything comes and it's not password protected, it's not right. There's all sorts of techniques and systems you can use to safeguard your finance departments. For us, we don't do BACS file transfers. So, any criminal trying to trick us to do a BACS file transfer, we know is not real because we never do them. None of our clients expect to be paid that way, or we don't expect to be paid that way either. So it's the processes you put in place. Email is not secure from day one, regardless of what you do with it. So it's the processes you put in place as a business is what makes it secure. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Another question is, if I use Microsoft Outlook in my company and want to prevent of using any other mail, if applicable, to apply these security measures to Outlook?
Well, Outlook's the email client, so you're limited with what Outlook can do. You can create rules, but you need to stop it as much as possible before it gets to Outlook. So, the web filtering and the email filtering, ideally all needs to be done, before it gets to Outlook, because once it's arrived in Outlook, the criminals have made it to your machine. So, technology needs to try and stop it before. If you don't have the choice, then okay, you'll have to look at endpoint antivirus and spam protection, which will have an Outlook plugin. But ideally, try and block as much as you can before it gets to Outlook.
Thank you, Nick. Now, to conclude the presentation, one last question. So, how do you think we can keep the pace with today's hackers? How do you think that we can get the best protection against them?
The best protection is to wait 4 hours before opening any email. That's the ultimate, because all the antivirus vendors have normally caught up with the threat that's just been created. It's within hours their systems are updated. But that's not realistic for most of us. So it's back to the processes that you put in place for identify malicious emails and fraudulent emails, knowing who you work with, and just being naturally suspicious. The blocking the attachments, filtering any web links, and just being suspicious of web links in general, because if someone wants to send you something, why aren't they just sending you the file? Why are they sending you a link? And the files will, establishing naming conventions that you expect files to come in, and you can say to your clients and your customers, this is how we want to work for your security. If the file doesn't have the relevant job number, we'll treat it as suspicious. It may not be acted upon for at least a couple of hours until we have it checked. It's your processes that make the difference, because the criminals will always be one step ahead. They can buy the same security systems we can and test it. In fact, they do. So your processes is what gives you the edge, and just being that element of suspicion, that concept and culture of not blaming anyone. If someone clicks on something nasty, you explain what happened to everyone else so they learn from it. And the no blame culture can make a difference. And encouraging people to report things that are suspicious. So, whoever is responsible for the email security can improve the system. Unless they know what's coming through and are watching it all the time, everyone needs to report back to them and say, look, this came through. Is this dodgy? And if they say, yeah, actually, yes, it is. Okay, let me see what I can do to improve the system. Add a new rule, tweak it. It's that constant tweaking is what gives you your edge. The same way the criminals are constantly tweaking, you need to do the same. And not being pushed for time and rushing and pausing to think will make a difference.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for delivering this great insight on email communication, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Please be informed that this session will be recorded and posted on our website as well as on our YouTube channel together with the slides of the presentation. For more information, please visit our website www.pecb.com. Thank you all and have a great day.